talking hardball, the bull and the better. Talking hardball, part of Betting Weekly. Handicappers, they're all in the know. Pick some winners and then we say let's go. So come on, it's time to watch the show. We're talking hardball. Ken Griffey's grotesquely swollen jaw. We're talking hardball. Over under on the hot dogs. Talking hardball. Bring your giant back.
Live on a Wednesday afternoon, at least where I am, a Wednesday morning where Doug is. It is 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. I don't know what time it is where you're watching. I guess it depends where you are. Look at that. We've got Arthur in the background behind Doug on Betting Weekly Hardball today. Doug, hey, look at him sitting proudly with his bow tie, staring you down, Doug.
He's disappointed with the losing streak. I got a bad beat on a hook yesterday, so we're trying to mix things up, kind of like people change their socks, change their routine, sit on the other side of the couch. Sometimes we have to break out Arthur, the good luck charm. But yeah, he's very stoic. Has TV experience. People might know him from ESPN fame, where he knows how to just sit alert and stare at the camera. And sometimes he yawns. Not sometimes, he actually yawns a lot. So he's just very curious right now. But he's well trained, right? He's well trained.
Does the yawn have meaning? In other words, if he's yawning, is he bored, or does he not like your pick? Does he not like?
He likes the under. He says it's going to be a snoozer of a game.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. So if Arthur yawns, you know the game we're talking about, take the under. That's the solution here. Yes. I like that. All right, a lot to get to on Betting Weekly Hardball. You talked about a bad beat yesterday. Was it a rough day overall on a Tuesday?
No, I mean, I said that one play, and it was frustrating. But we did well in the WNBA across the board. I'm going to go back to the same matchup, Tigers and Pirates. But I thought we could lay a half run in the first 5 with Haney. No, but the Tigers do cover the 1.5 in the game. So my attack of using starters and things like that early did not pay off, and it was just a tough one in that regard. But the two-way line pushed. So that's one of the other things. Just try to save 50 cents, you get burned. So that happens. You can't be, revisionist history. I'm sticking with the same approach this game, and we'll get into that one. But all in all, I think we were seeing the ball pretty well. We definitely wanted to avoid a lot of games, and we fortunately did. And I guess we're going to wonder if the Yankees will ever score again.
Yeah, it's bizarre what's going on, and we'll talk about all those games. Every team in action today. All 30 teams. Oddly, for a Wednesday, there are no there's no games during our time slot. There is one day game, the Red Sox-Mariners, 4:10 Eastern. But there's nothing going on right now. Usually there is. Tomorrow, there will be plenty of action when we're on. It's a pretty full slate. It might be every team playing tomorrow. We'll have day games, but so nothing going on right now. But there are plenty of games to look at, and if you don't know Betting Weekly Hardball, if it's your first time in, of course, we're part of the Betting Weekly studios in the Bet Rivers family. And Doug is on every weekday at 2 o'clock Eastern and every weekday at 3 o'clock Eastern with Betting Weekly Fast Break, which will follow us. And then I join him usually 3 days a week. This week I'm going late week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So like I said, we'll have games to talk about in progress, but not today. So let's get to the games that are going on tonight, Doug. And let's start with the Yankees, who you just mentioned. 5 straight losses, shutout in 3 straight games. And what was particularly eye-opening about the loss yesterday to the Angels was that they got blanked for 6 innings by Kyle Hendricks. Now, I will say, as a Cubs fan, that Kyle Hendricks is one of my favorite players. And at his best, he was a very low-key Greg Maddux type pitcher. Certainly not Hall of Fame level, but like a really good pitcher there at his prime.
He was a bet-on pitcher at his best.
Yes, but it's been a while since it's been about 3-4 years, at least, since he's been at his best. He looked like he was done last year. He pitched okay heading into this start recently, but that was a shocker for the Yankees to get completely shut down by Kyle Hendricks. And for him, again, even in his prime, was not a big strikeout pitcher. To have 9 strikeouts in 6 innings, that was a stunner. But the Yankees, of course, remain a pretty big favorite today, Doug.
We had Chris Massaro on the show last night, and a professional bettor, I should say yesterday.
Yeah.
And he talked about we had a lot of streaks going in yesterday. Some teams 5 straight wins, 6 straight wins with the Red Sox. Other teams had a bunch of losses. Nats, I think 9 or 10 straight and things like that. But even when a team has only won a few, he's just a little gun shy. Like when the Yankees came up, he's like, I don't like to get in front of these that often. So that was his rationale, and it proved to be sort of prophetic, because when teams are in a rut, they're in a rut, and I've talked about it as well. There's just better things to do with your money sometimes than try to get cute. Now, sometimes like in the prop market, you have to zag when everyone's zigging, especially in like the NBA finals, things like that. But for the most part, with baseball, it's a strange game. Teams go on streaks. I wouldn't be like chasing the Nationals today just because the Rockies have beaten the first 2 games of the series. We could just refer back to what happened with the Marlins, and they got swept at home. So
Right.
baseball's funny like that with streaks. Sometimes pitchers are so good, their ace will be on the bump, and then you can just sort of convince yourself that it's worthy of sort of betting into a situation just because the pitcher's taking the mound.
The pitching matchup, speaking of which, the pitching matchup today does favor the Yankees. Jack Kahanowitz will be on the hill for Los Angeles. He's been pretty bad this year. He is 3-8 with a 5.53 ERA. For the Yankees, the pitcher is Ryan Yarborough, who was kind of a throwaway by Tampa. And he's been pretty solid for the Yankees overall. 2 starts ago against Boston, he was crushed, gave 8 runs in 4 innings. But then in his last start against Boston, he bounced back. And overall, since becoming a starter with the Yankees, he's mostly been excellent. Outside of that one, the one Boston start skews his numbers. His ERA would be about 3 if it wasn't for that one bad start. So how much? But he's not been a trustworthy starter in his career. How much do you trust Yarborough today, or not at all? Because as you said,
It's funny. Sometimes I really like betting on him, but it's really is like, is that just a first impression? Did he just win me a bet early on? You wonder what the rationale is, because to your point, he can be erratic. I throw out that one Red Sox performance, especially when he bounced back in the next one. So I think the Yankees are a team I would look to bet on, but I just got done saying you got to be careful. And like you said, the money line's huge. The run line, I'm in no rush. And Chris brought this up yesterday, and it's true. Usually it's on the West Coast, but the Yankees have trouble with the Angels for whatever reason. And we're talking the last couple decades. I said earlier when they were on the West Coast, like a month ago or so, when the Yankees were out West, they actually did surprisingly well against the A's and the Angels and Mariners. Usually it's a sight of horror, just fluky with losses, things like that. And they always murder the Royals and the Twins. So that's sort of what happens. But again, like eras change, players change, managers change, but it does stick in my craw sometimes if I bet on a trend like that and I lose. I'm like, I knew better. I knew better. So I just think the price is too big at 230 right here. But I definitely wouldn't want any part of the halos here.
I guess this is not surprising, but because I also thought of and it turns out it's pretty true, but I always thought of the Angels have struggled against the Yankees too. I'm sorry, the Yankees have struggled against the Angels. I went to look up the Yankees record against every team in Major League Baseball. And do you know that as a franchise, I guess this shouldn't be surprising because they've had so much success over the years. The Yankees do not have a losing record against any team. Isn't that wild? You would have thought there was one team maybe but not a single team. In fact, of the current American League teams, the Yankees record against the Angels is their second worst record. Only the Tigers have a better winning percentage all time against the Yankees of current. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Third. It's the Tigers, the Red Sox, and then the Angels have the 3 best records. Now, the Yankees still have a winning record against all those teams, but not as dominant as they've been against everybody else in the American League.
Right. Interesting.
Just a fun stat there. I don't know if it really means anything, but there
It
you
always
go.
means
So,
something.
yeah. So all right. So anything official from this game, or you staying away?
No, and I looked at some props, like, when there's something like this, like, should you be betting Judge under?
Yeah.
Should you be doing all this stuff? Like, maybe, but nothing right now. I not with this pitching matchup with the Angels and stuff.
It is
But
wild.
but just, buyer beware.
Yeah.
Like they will eventually score a run. I just don't know when it is and don't need I'm not that interested to just
Yeah.
lay it for no reason.
Interesting. Last week, I can't remember what day it was that we were on together, and you brought up the point that the Yankees lineup is not that good. And I have felt the same way, but they have scored a lot of runs, and I felt like they would due for some regression. Now, obviously, this last week has been maybe a little over the top regression, but they were due for some. Even Judge, who's obviously a superstar, he was. I mean, no, he was hitting over 400. Nobody's keeping that up. So, and you wonder, and I'd have to kind of look into this more, and it could be important from a gambling perspective in terms of props with Judge. I wonder if teams are finally wisening up. Wisening? I don't even know if that's a word. Wising up? I don't know.
Wising. Sounds
Uh,
right.
if they're really, because the rest of the lineup is just not that it's terrible. It's just Aaron Judge is so much better than any other hitter on that team. You wonder, that he doesn't have the protection from Juan Soto and others that he's had in the past, if teams will just really go out of their way even more now to pitch around him, because it's crazy to pitch to him unless you have no choice at this point.
I've been shouting it from the rooftops
Yeah.
all season, especially after losing Judge. I mean, they've put Bellinger, they've put
Yeah.
Rice behind him, or Grisham in front of him, things like that. And to your point about the lineup, Boone buckled a little bit or bent. He moved his lineup a little bit, moved Goldschmidt to sixth, put Dominguez in the leadoff spot yesterday. That didn't help. So I mean, guys like Wells were batting behind him. Now Stanton's back. So if we talk about this in the NBA playoffs when there's a guy, coach changes his starting lineup, that's a sign that the other team's got an edge, or in their head at least. Something's in the coach's head. So with Boone moving things around,
Yeah.
I think he sees what we see.
Yeah. I think there definitely could be something to that. I wanted to see if the Yankee lineup is out yet for today, but I don't think it is. So no. That's it. All right, let's go to the next game here, Doug. Next game on our docket is the Red Sox at the Mariners. Red Sox 6-game winning streak as Rafael Devers makes his Giants debut yesterday. The Red Sox lose, although they did win their first game without him. They got crushed. Garrett Crochet is on the hill for the Red Sox today. The Mariners the game is on MLB Network. The pitching matchup against Garrett, it's Garrett Crochet, as I mentioned, who's been fantastic. Luis Castillo, no longer in his prime, but still a really good pitcher. This is an excellent pitching matchup in Seattle tonight.
How do you like the over-under there? 6.5.
That is just nuts.
Microscopic. Now, the Red Sox, during that 6-game win streak, and I mentioned this yesterday on the show, all 6 games had gone under the total. So it wasn't like the lineup was all of a sudden raking. Like, frankly, the team totals went under in almost all of them. So they did go over yesterday because it was 7.5. They lose 8-0. So now it's back to a low-scoring game. I think it's Red Sox, under kind of thing. I mean, they lose Devers. The lineup hasn't exactly been raking. They're just getting some great pitching. Giolito was fantastic in Seattle. The Mariners lineup is always somehow these pitchers pitched well at Fenway against Yankee Stadium, and then Giolito pitched great at home in his last game, the game we discussed last week with the Rays when they won 3-1. So I would honestly start to lean into this Red Sox team total thing. You finally get a loss, so the bounce in their step's gone, and you can get under 3.5 minus 127. You know what? Let's make it an official play. I'll go under 3.5 minus 127. I know 6.5 is a low number. You know what? Let me take that back. Instead of team total, I'm going to bank on Crochet as well.
Okay.
So I think he's outstanding. So I'm going to go first 5 under 3.5 minus 125.
I love it. Both these pitchers have been outstanding. Crochet has allowed 2 runs or less in 8 of his last 9 starts. Castillo has allowed 2 runs or less in 5 of his last 7 and 3 runs or less in 6 of his last 7. In other words, for about the last month or so, a little longer in Crochet's case, they've both only made one bad start. Combine that with the fact that it's a pitcher's park and two lineups that are not doing much, and I'm with you on that first 5 under.
Now, there's some trends that say over, but that's just like silly talk because it's like over the last 24 meetings between the Mariners and Red Sox. So, like, I
Yeah.
really don't care last year, things like that. But
Right.
Mariners, their bats went really silent. So with Crochet, like I'm in a rush to bet against their offense as well, except
Sure.
for last night, of course.
I agree with you. All right. Before we move on to the next game, I want to remind you to sign up for the newsletter at bettingweeklystudios.com for weekly betting tips and the entire newsletter, tennis brackets, breakdowns, and more. So check out the bettingweeklystudios.com newsletter. You mentioned in our intro a bad beat, Pirates Tigers. Let's get to that one. The Pirates, by the way, have been we all know about Skeens, but they've been sneaky good as a team pitching wise. Their pitching or their starting pitching has been great. Now the rest of their team stinks, but their starting pitching has been great. But they got to face Tarek Skubal, who's the best in the biz right now. Andrew Haney and Skubal. That's the pitching matchup in Detroit. Skubal's ERA now under 2. He's been so good. And the Tigers are the best record in baseball. They're 14 games over 500 at home, 20 over overall. Pirates 16 under on the road. They've been terrible. This game, obviously everything leaning towards the Tigers, but they're a massive favorite at minus 335. Would you consider the Tigers, again, minus 1.5 at minus 132, minus 1.5 runs?
I prefer the first 5 run line. I mean,
okay.
I again, it's all about Skubal and not necessarily just to bet against the pitcher in this case, which it is sort of. I mean, you could do the 7-inning game. You can do some one of those, but the 7 innings is tempted. But I'll do the first 5 run line, which is minus a half.
Yeah.
So it's a 3-way line minus $1.90. I'll do it. I think he's that special. And you mentioned it. He's only minus 278 at Bet Rivers to win the Cy Young in the American League.
Really?
And Max Fried's come back to earth a little bit, so he's plus 750 co-favorite with Brown for the Astros. So I think that's probably a pretty good bet. Although with pitchers and things like that, it's still mid-June, but it's going to get to the point where he's going to be minus $4 pretty darn soon. So, but yeah, no, you're right about the Pirates, though. I swear, if I'm ever in a band, I'm going to call it Sneaky Decent. I think that's sort of how I would describe them. Sort of the middle of the pack base or basketball teams too, like the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah.
Some of these teams that are not going to make the playoffs, but they're not going to be in the bottom of the standing. So yeah, I would say the Pirates pitching's been sneaky decent, even outside of Skeens. But we just need to cover a half run. This Tigers lineup is something we both have raved about, so I'm okay with that.
Would you consider it's such a low number? But would you consider the Pirates under 2.5 runs for the game at minus 143? Probably not, right? Not a minus 143.
Yeah, if the juice was a little better, it's minus 143. If it were like $1.20, I would say yes, I'd be in.
Would you consider over 8.5 strikeouts for Skubal at minus 105?
He's tricky. He sort of gets fiery and then can start releasing the hounds in terms of his heat. But, he's had 6 in back-to-back games.
Yeah.
I always get weirded out like interleague play. Does that mean the pitcher has the edge because the batters haven't faced him? But don't you scout pitchers as well? And so you know how to pitch them. So I think it kind of goes both ways. So I'm always a little uneasy when it comes to that. Pitchers strikeouts are the props for them are a little tough unless it's just like a flamethrower who is going to who's going to eat, right? Like a guy like Skeens.
All right. So first 5 under 3.5 at minus 125. I'm sorry. That was the last game.
That's in the Red Sox game.
First 5 minus a half at minus 190. That's what you're going with here.
Yeah, it's getting rich at $1.90. That's kind of like Rocky's territory, but I think it's with Skubal and the Pirates offense. I think it's the right approach to this.
All right. The Mets and the Braves next up on the docket. Yesterday, the Mets scored 3 runs in the first inning. We know the Braves have been scuffling. They're Going into last night, they were 8 games under 500. I should say they scored 3 runs in the first 2 innings, and they had a 4-1 lead going into the 8th, but the Mets blew it in the 8th inning. They left Peterson, their starter, in to pitch the 8th, and the Braves come back, and they tie it at 4 in the 8th. They win it in the 10th, 5-4. Tonight, the pitching matchup in this game, we have, and the game starts at 7:15 Eastern. Paul Blackburn, who missed the whole season, came back, made 1 start, then he went to the pen. Now he's back in the rotation as the Mets have put 2 pitchers on the injured list, but he's facing Chris Sale tonight. Sale, obviously, a 2.79 ERA and 107 strikeouts, so still pitching at a very high level. What are we thinking in this game, Doug?
It's funny. We talked about Schwellenbach in yesterday's game because he had come off his highest pitch count of the season at 105. And of course, like you mentioned, the Mets junked on him, but they were unable to. So they're in a little bit of a funk. Mets have lost 4 straight after getting swept at home by the Rays. I was looking at Sale's pitcher prop in terms of the over. It's right there on the cusp, but I think over 7.5 at plus money has some good value in my eyes. I would not bet against Sale. He's been a monster and really, really a monster. And his ERA the last, I don't know, month and a half has been around 1.2. So I don't want any part of the Mets, but that's a big number to be laying. So I think you want to isolate props that are correlated to the $1.90 favorite, but you're not laying that kind of juice. So you would need 8 strikeouts or more for him to cash the plus 106. And he's gone 8 strikeouts or more in 7 of his last 8 starts. Now, does the Mets lineup strike out a lot? So for me, the only way I would be Sale over 7.5 strikeouts plus 106. 6.5 is tempting. You can always do a same game parlay where you can do over 6.5 strikeouts. So you put a little juice in there, and then that brings down the money line if you want to say also, the Braves win the game, and then you make that a plus 105 play. So you can give up a strikeout because we're comparing plus 106 or 105, right? So let's just call it a wash. So you can either do Sale over 7.5 Ks, so he has to get 8 or more,
right?
And that's your only bet. Or you do 1 less strikeout, but then the Braves have to win the game. I think that's too much. I'd rather do 1 more strikeout than also have another outcome that is correlated, but it's not. It's still another outcome, and Sale can obviously, lose, pitch strikeouts and still lose the game. So that's why I think you got to play with some of these same game parlays and these options. Just know what you have in the portfolio or the options or the palette, I like to say, like your menu. And I think that if I had the option of those 2 and I had to pick one, I would definitely do the over 7.5 Ks.
Let me give you a couple of notes in terms of the Mets. They're 6th best in the league in terms of striking out. So they don't strike out a lot as a team. They only strike out 7.74 times per game, which is 6th best. However, they are significantly worse both at striking out and overall against lefties. Chris Sale, of course, is a lefty. And in terms of if you're thinking about winning the game, so the Mets against right-handed pitching are averaging a little over a home run per game. Against left-handed pitching, they're averaging less than a half a home run per game. So they strike out more against lefties. They get on base worse against lefties. They're significantly lower in terms of slugging against lefties. And overall, they're just not good against lefties. And Chris Sale's a very good lefty. So I'm kind of with you. I like his strikeout total tonight. I also think the Braves are going to win. So I wouldn't be definitely against dropping down on a strikeout and taking the win. But you're right. Ultimately, I think I like to, if I had to say what has a better chance, that 1 more strikeout or the win, I'd rather go with the 1 more strikeout.
I mean, it's just another outcome. It's such a, I mean, it's baseball, right?
Yeah.
I would, with all these 2-strike pitches, if you just think yourself, obviously you have to look at the stats, and 7.5's a nice line of demarcation. But in this particular matchup, and hearing that the Mets are obviously worse against Lefties, that is something. Has
Yeah.
he yawned at all? I mean, maybe we could go to the under
Oh,
or
yeah, I
something like
missed
that.
that. Arthur, I have
Yeah,
not seen. I go
he's
back.
pretty good.
Yeah, Arthur's.
Okay.
Ooh, yes, that means under. And an
All right. So
under to
so
me
buyer beware
translates
on
to a
those
lot of
overs.
strikeouts.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you meant under on the prop.
Yeah,
He's usually yawning all the time. I
yeah,
That's actually one of my kind of favorite things is he just like just goes nuts with his mouth wide open.
yeah. He's chill right now. I mean, he is just
Yeah. He's
chilling
like
out.
sitting all perfect with
I
his
know.
paws.
Yeah, he's looking very professional. I mean, he's a real professional. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Arthur, stepping his game up today. I like it.
Yeah, we got the graphic in there, so I'll move him back.
All right, let's get to the next game on the docket, and that's the Royals and the Rangers. Um, Chris Bubich is on the hill. Got smoked his last time out. It's an 8:05 Eastern start. Obviously, he had been having a magnificent season before that game, but in his last start, gave up 5 runs and 10 base runners in 4 1/3 against the Yankees, of course, who can't hit now. But before that, he had gone 7 consecutive starts of 0 or 1 runs. The Rangers, obviously, overall this season, have struggled offensively. They'll have Patrick Corbin on the hill. We've talked about him plenty. He has been, just kind of mediocre for the most part of late. His last 5 starts, he's 4 of the last 5 starts, he's pitched just 5 innings and given up 2 or 3 runs. He did have one really nice start against the terrible Nats about 2 weeks ago. But overall, he's kept you in the game, but he's not pitching particularly great. What are we looking at here?
So
Royals
as the
Rangers.
spider bite wore off, I guess,
Yeah,
the magic of the spider bite. So maybe the venom or whatever you
I
wanna
think so.
whatever spiders have.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe that pitching juju
yeah,
with the spider. For me, it's Royals or pass.
yeah,
This time of year, I wonder, oh, can they handle the humidity? But this pitcher's coming. This pitcher being Bubich, coming from Kansas City, so I think we're okay here.
yeah.
He did have one previous outing where he got touched up and he gave up 4 earned in 5 innings. He had a nice bounce back in the next game. That makes me more
Yep.
inclined to bet the Royals. I think if this were Royals minus like 113, I'd be nervous because it would be stinky line. But I think the fact that it's 129 makes me more inclined to bet the Royals. So it's Royals or pass for me. I do think the Royals end up being the right side here. I think Corbin's, that spider bite shine is finally off.
I agree. This is not Spider-Man where it lasts forever. In the real world, it goes away after just a little bit. Um, I also would think about in this game some
Maserati with a prop suggestion.
what okay, let me see this. Maserati says Chris Bubich over 17 and a half outs. Are you with that?
I'm not against it. Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
not against it. I just wonder if he's like locked in actually. If he's going to be getting a bunch of strikeouts, then that's when we run into a problem. Basically, I've lost a prop on this. I lost it last week with Valdez
Yeah.
of the Astros. He had like 11 Ks, and I needed him to go 7 innings. He only went 5. It's like, oh, the pitch count just got out of hand. So if he pitches against some of these teams where he doesn't have a lot of Ks, he can go deep into the game.
Yeah.
So to Maserati's point, prior to that Yankees getting touched up, he had 5 straight games where he went over that prop. So, and you always got to look like, has a manager does he have any point ones on his stat line? And there are a couple. So a manager's willing to leave him into the game to get that one. You don't need the full inning. That's key too.
One other thing I want to hit you with here. Bobby Witt Jr. So Bobby Witt Jr. quietly has been kind of slumping. The home run total is down, and the last week or so he's been kind of slumping. And last night he had a good game. And this guy to me is I'm saying, I'm not breaking any news here. He's one of the 5 best players in baseball. And he is due to just catch absolute fire here. And I think I feel like he's gonna have a big game tonight. So I think a prop, or just a betting on his over 1.5
Total bases kind of
total
thing.
bases. I think he's minus 120 over 1.5. Or I'd even be comfortable going over 1.5 hits, which obviously is a little tougher than 1.5 total bases. I think you're getting plus money with that, I believe, because I think he's going to have a big game. I think big game for Bobby Witt tonight. Mark it down. Mark it down.
Put it on the board. What about Scott Cobe, who chiming in on the chat with the Rangers team total under 3.5? Like Bubic just throwing BBs.
Yeah. Well, and if you like, that could be a parlay, right? Bubic over 17.5 outs and the Rangers under 3.5 runs. Because if the Bubic thing hits, there's a good chance the Rangers under will hit.
Sure.
So that's not yeah.
They let you do this. Some of the times it's a little too correlated, but team
Gotcha.
totals
That's
I'm
true.
a fan of. It's a nice little sweat, and when you have a good pitcher, it's exciting. And this Rangers lineup, nothing to write home about per se. So I can certainly see myself getting behind that. I got a lot of plays here, so I got to be careful. But I do think Bubic bounces back, and I like the juice at Bet Rivers is minus 108.
There you go. That's good. A couple other messages from the YouTube chat. Scott says, I live in Boston. These offensive problems could last throughout the rest of the season. They're talking about platooning Yoshida and Ref Snyder. That's not good. And we had one other. Oh, Kirk says, what do you guys think of the Tigers money line? We talked about that already. And the Cubs money line at plus 118. And I'll bring that one up because that's the next game on the docket. The Brewers at the Cubs. Cubs win a exciting game yesterday, 5-3. So the pitching matchup for today is
I don't like the Cubs today.
Yeah, well, the pitcher for Milwaukee, a top prospect, it's an 805 start. Jacob Mizorowski made his major league debut last time out and pitched 5 no-hit innings against the Cardinals. And he got hit in the foot, and they pulled him out. He did have 4 walks, but he had 5 strikeouts. Now, we know the Cubs lineup is a lot better than the Cardinals. And Jameson Taillon has played – he's been great of late. I would stay away from – I kind of like the under in this game, Doug. You like the Brewers?
Oh, I just don't like the Cubs. I think you're laying $1.57. Even if it's a parlay, you're still laying that, and that's too much. I'm with you. I think the total under would be the only play I would play this. I like this young guy for this rookie. I think the hype is for real. So I like minus, even at $1.17 or whatever the juice is at Bet Rivers. I like under 8. I think that's the right way to play this. To your point, Taillon's been okay. But I think if somebody's going to get touched up, I think it's going to be Taillon. I like this Mizorowski guy. I think he's legit. Yeah,
Taillon in his last 5 starts, though, has given up 2 runs or less in all of them. And he's pitched at least 6 1/3 in all of them. So he's been a guy who's been just kind of an average pitcher most of his career. Not bad, not great. But lately he's pitching the best baseball. The Cubs have won his last 5 starts. But to be fair, 4 of those 5 starts are against terrible teams. But he did pitch well against the Tigers a week and a half ago. So, yeah, I like the under 8.
Concern. Yeah, that's my concern, though. He faced the Brewers 4 times last year. I'd say 2 really good starts, 2 okay.
Yeah.
So, it's last year's lineup. I get it. But, everyone's been waiting on Taillon to kind of put it all together. Or at least early in his career, people were waiting on him to be
well, he was a high
up to the hype of being number 2 overall. Ahead of Machado.
He did go ahead. Sorry.
So I just think the price is right, so to speak, right? Like the gap between the money lines, right? Between the Cubs money line and Brewers is called a straddle. So the straddle's where the house has the edge, perceived edge, and the likelihood or whatever of a team, they're sort of in between. See, Arthur's yawning. He likes the under.
He's with us.
Yawned, so.
Yes, Arthur. I like it.
Yeah. But I'm just saying the straddles where they have the built-in edge, and I think it's appropriate here. I think it's a strike. Forget the pun on strike, but it's like a strike zone, and I think it is going to kind of the likelihood is it sort of is right around there. So there's no edge on either side of that. Is my point.
Right. Taillon did pitch in Milwaukee on May 3rd of this year. 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 2 runs, 5 Ks. So solid start there. So under 8 is the play there. All right, before we get to the next game on the docket, and talk about some trends here, Doug. Let's talk about Betting Weekly Fast Break, which is coming your way, folks, in about 25 minutes or so. What's on the docket there for today?
We have Wes Reynolds, our resident Hoosier, Indiana native. He went back home for both games 3 and 4. He knows this team very well. He's been pretty hot giving out plays, and you know, I did okay. I got a silly same game parlay, added a team in there, so I'm 7-3 ATS on the props in these playoffs. So we're gonna look ahead to tomorrow night's game 6. We also have an interesting game in the W, just one game after 6 games yesterday, but it involves the Connecticut Sun, who had players ejected yesterday with the scuffle
Yeah.
with Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever, so maybe suspensions coming down. So there's an interesting handicap because on one side it's a team off a big emotional game and players ejected, and on the other side is a team getting healthy and peaking, so you have a double digit line, but they're tomorrow night they have their own back to back playing the defending champs, so maybe a look ahead spot. So a couple moving pieces here. It'll be interesting to see which side Wes is on, as he and I both discussed it, but we've been hot in the W, so that's where we've been cashing, as well as the props in the finals.
And one thing to note that Arthur kind of jumped up when you started talking basketball. He sat up again and he was licking his lips, which makes me think he's excited about the WNBA games tonight. So stick
Might have a
around for that.
play. I mean,
Yeah,
that may be what it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Such a
All
degenerate. So
right. All right, Doug. Next game, Rockies at the Nats. The Rockies, believe it or not, have they're 7-7 in their last 14 games. I'm not happy about this. They were 9-50. We're talking about shattering all records. They obviously still can, but 7-7 since starting 9-50. For them, that's pretty darn good. And they're playing the Nats, who have lost 10 in a row. You'd have to say right now, the Rockies, as bad as they are playing better baseball than the Nationals.
of course. And it's
Yeah,
just remarkable when you saw these money lines in this series around $2 for a team that had lost 8, 9,
yeah,
now 10. It's out of control. But Herman Marquez, I think Sensatella went yesterday. I just can't get behind, but you're only getting plus 135 here.
yeah.
So I can't get involved with the Rocks, but the Nats are nothing to write home about, obviously. And 10 straight losses. I mean, that even the Rockies haven't lost more than 8 in a row. Like,
That's
remember
right.
that? They've had like
That's
4
right.
or 5 8-loss streaks. I think 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So I'm not in a rush to fire on that. And I would say this is a hard pass. Not even a total interest me. I can't.
Yeah, I don't see anything here. Marquez has, I'll give him a little credit. His last 5 starts, he's been serviceable.
Yeah.
His last 5 starts, he's pitched 28 innings and given up 11 earned runs. Now, that's pretty good for this Rockies rotation. 11 runs in 28 innings. I mean, that's, an ERA of about 4, which for the Rockies, the way they've been, that's not bad. So he's been serviceable. Parker's been awful. But there's no way I'm betting on the Rockies, even as bad as the Nats are right now. So, this is a stay away. There was a part of me that said, maybe I like the over in this game, but I just don't ultimately trust either lineup enough either to go down that road. All right,
I
next
agree.
game. Next game, the Astros and the Athletics. Good pitching matchup. Framber Valdez and Luis Severino. Anything for you here, Doug?
Valdez has just been such a bet on pitcher right now.
Yep.
He's the guy you really want to be in that foxhole with. If you're in a playoff, if the playoffs roll around, he's a guy you want to back. I worry about this Oakland sort of or Sacramento ballpark, things like that. But certainly the Astros pitching wasn't, they were up 8-0 or something, 9-0, 10-0, something like that at some point, and then one going away. It's hard not to lay the $1.65 here. I mean, that feels cheap when you're talking about Valdez. Now, Severino, talk about the sneaky decent. He's been sneaky decent for, I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know, last month or so,
Yep.
but he has been touched up. I think the Astros bats are getting hot. I think I said it 2 weeks ago. They're a team I'd look at in terms of the futures because they got 2 stud pitchers. I think Valdez is fantastic. $1.65 feels cheap. Maybe a same game parlay, but remember, I got burned, I think his last start or one of his last 2 starts. where I had him going deep in the game, but the problem is he had too many strikeouts
against the
and he
White
didn't
Sox.
last. Yeah, I mean, it's like he
Yeah.
struck out too many guys. So over 17.5 with the Houston win is tempting. That pays as I scroll around. Um, kind of a same game parlay situation where it could. Oh, here my things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to remove some guys. But yeah, no, you're looking at something that could pay like plus money, and so why not, right?
Yeah.
You can throw in some strikeouts, things like that. Like maybe Valdez over 5.5 strikeouts, you can get -113 for the Astros money line. Tempting,
Yes.
tempting.
I like it. And you talked about Valdez. He was a little up and down the first month of the season, and people were asking, like, he had a few really bad starts, and it was like, what's going on with Valdez? The guy's been so good. Well, since then, he has been just incredible. His last, let's see, his last 2, 5, 7 starts dating back to May 7th, 49 innings, 11 earned runs. That's an ERA barely over 1 in his last 7 starts. The Astros have won every one of those games that he has started, but most of them have been close. Only 5 of those 7 have been single runs, so I'm not going to lay a run line with the Astros, but I do like them to win, and I do like so any kind of parlay with the Astros winning and something around Framber Valdez is okay with me.
Yeah, I mean his strikeouts are I don't want to say erratic, but very
Yeah,
unpredictable. Um,
yeah,
5 strikeouts would be on the low side. So getting 6 plus a win, I'm only getting -113.
yeah.
So yeah, let's put it on the board. Let's go
All right.
Astros money line, same game parlay. Valdez over 5.5 strikeouts together. That's a -113 money line.
Yeah.
For a
S-
juice.
7 of his last 8 starts, he's had 6 or more strikeouts. The only one he didn't was against the Mariners on May 24th when he had 5. So I'm with you on that. I like that a lot. All right, let's take a look at the game real quick. The games that we did not talk about today. We'll go rapid fire around the rest of them. Ranger Suarez pitching for the Phillies today. Adam Mazer will make his Marlins debut. Pitched for the Padres last year. He was part of a trade. I can't remember the trade, but anyway, he's getting called up to make the start. Phillies are passing this one or no?
Exactly what I was going to say. Phillies are
Yeah.
past. The juice is right at -175. The Marlins stink.
Yeah.
Maybe get involved with first 5 run line, but the Marlins bats did get to them.
Yeah.
So, no need to get involved in a game that you just don't absolutely love.
Diamondback Diamondbacks Blue Jays 7:07 Eastern start in Toronto. Blue Jays won last night on back-to-back back-to-back homers, including a walk-off against Shelby Miller down a run in the ninth. Eduardo Rodriguez and Eric Lauer. Anything for you there?
No, I really like these teams, though. These are teams that I want to bet on. I think they are still under the radar. And I say still because the D-backs went to the World Series recently, but
Right.
don't love Rodriguez here. I would favor the Blue Jays, but again, I like both of these lineups a lot.
Twins and Reds 7:10 Eastern in Cincy. Bailey Ober, Nick Lodolo.
Ober got tagged in the last game,
Yep.
so can he bounce back? Probably not. I mean, he's not like he's some reliable thing, but I don't want to back the Reds either. Pass for me, but I would look to maybe the over, but it's a big number too at 9, all things considered.
Orioles Rays 7:35 Eastern at George Steinbrenner Field in Tampa. Trevor Rogers, who they traded for a couple of years ago, was a terrible trade, making his season debut. He's been in the minors against Taj Bradley of the Rays. Rays have been playing great overall.
Yeah, and this lineup we've talked
Yeah.
about it's not like superstar driven.
Yep.
Bradley's been a little all over the place. I'd actually look under if anything because I feel like it sneaks under the total, but that's just a gut play. I wouldn't get involved.
Cardinals White Sox 7:40 Eastern. Sonny Gray and Sean Burke. That's not an
Yeah, the
exciting
Red
game.
Sox, sorry, the
Yeah.
Cardinals got to my guy Shane Smith
Yeah, they
yesterday.
did.
I would look to bet the Cardinals if the price was better. I don't love Sonny Gray, but he's fine, just not at this kind of a price, $1.80.
Guardians Giants 9:45 Eastern. The Guardians with a rare win these days. I was surprised they beat Robbie Ray. They didn't score a ton of runs, but Ciccone pitched well. Verlander comes off the injured list to make the start. The extremely mediocre Logan Allen for the Guardians. Anything in this one?
Yeah, real nice pitchers duel yesterday. I would look to something similar in terms of the under. Like you said, the rare win for the Guardians. Don't love the offenses. I think Verlander can get you enough. I think we get there under 8, but a lot of that was bullpen. I think they didn't score yesterday when it was 3-2 in the 5th or something. They didn't get any more runs the rest of the way. Loaded the bases in the 9th with 1 out. Lean under 8, not getting involved.
And finally, a game we would normally spend more time on, but the pitching matchup not very sexy. The Padres and the Dodgers. Stephen Kolek for the Padres. Your Dodgers, Emmett Sheehan's pitching for the first time in like 2 years.
And they're $2 favorites or whatever they are. It's just absurd with this lineup.
Yeah.
And Chris was on the show yesterday. The over-under was like 10 or 11. He's like, be careful on the under. Dodgers mash righties. They could really get the offense going, and they did. They put up a big number. This is when I talked about the last month or so. The Dodgers are about to get hot at some point in the summer. This might be where it is, and you got to be careful taking the dog money. It could be just a dead dog, but we have an alert dog here.
Yeah,
it could be a dead dog on the Padres.
He's excited. He likes the Dodgers tonight too. All right. Thanks to everybody for joining us today. Thanks for all the YouTube chat comments. Thanks to Z and Alex for producing today. Thanks to, of course, Arthur, who was an integral part of today's show. Arthur the dog. What breed is he?
It's French Bulldog.
French Bulldog, right? Okay. He's very regal looking, and I love the bow tie. It's great. Arthur was
sophisticated,
so well behaved during the show. I'm extremely impressed. For Doug, I'm Adam. Betting Weekly Fast Break coming your way in 15 minutes. We'll talk to you tomorrow on Betting Weekly Hardball, part of the Bet Rivers family. See you, everybody.